Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting here this morning. And this is the meeting of the State Enterprise, Joint Select Committee on State Enterprises. I'd like to welcome the officials of the Vehicle Management Company of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the media, and my colleague members of this committee. The purpose of the meeting is to examine the operations of the Vehicle Management Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago with a specific focus on the repair and acquisition of vehicles for state bodies, and to explore what might be some of the possible solutions to the challenges being faced by the corporation. The role of this committee is firstly to examine the issues which arose based on VMCOTT's written submissions in response to the committee's questions. Secondly, we are here to aid VMCOTT, to help you in improving the operations and administration, hopefully resulting in a more efficient and effective organization. For your information, this meeting is being broadcast live on Parliament Channel 11, Parliament Radio 105.5 FM, and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. Viewers and listeners can participate by sending comments relating to today's engagement with VMCOTT via email to parl101@ttparliament.org, on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ttparliament, or on Twitter at ttparliament. So I would now like to invite the members of the team from VMCOTT to introduce themselves.
Mr. Chairman, a pleasant good morning to you, other members of the panel. I am Lieutenant Colonel Neil Bennett, retired. I am the Chairman of the Board of Directors at VMCOTT. And to my right is my CEO, who will introduce himself.
Good morning. My name is Ramesh Lakan. I'm the CEO of VMCOTT.
Morning. I am Terence Sami, the Acting Finance Manager for VMCOTT.
Good morning. My name is Natasha Prince. I'm the Operations Manager for the Vehicle Maintenance Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Good morning. I'm Larry Cummings. I'm the Internal Auditor for the Vehicle Management Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much. I will start the introductions on this table by introducing myself. My name is David Small. I'm the chairman of this committee, and I will invite members of this committee to introduce themselves, starting with a member on the extreme right.
Fazil Karim, member.
Lester Henry, member.
Wade Mark, member.
Thank you very much. And in participation in this meeting too, we have members of the Parliament Secretariat team who ably support us in getting the work of this committee done. I'd now like to request and to remind everyone to please make sure that your cell phones are either switched off or placed on silent mode. And I would like to start this morning by indicating that we acknowledge receiving all of the submissions from VMCOTT, and we thank you for providing the written responses to the questions submitted to the committee. And I think one of the submissions we sent a correction, which I confirm we received in good time, and members were able to review it. We appreciate you sending information completely and on time. I will now call on the chairman of VMCOTT to make some brief opening remarks.
Mr. Chairman, as the chairman of VMCOTT, I have the honor of being the chairman of a board of directors who aid and assist in direct management of a state body that has a significant role to play. Given the economic climate that we're in, I see a greater need for VMCOTT in providing the full ambit of fleet management to the respective ministries of the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And I will offer myself to answer any questions that you may have to pose at us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for keeping your remarks brief. It's much appreciated given our late starting time, and on behalf of the committee, we want to apologize due to some challenges we had in terms of being here in time, but we're trying to make the best of the time that we have available. In terms of proceeding, I would like to make sure that as we go forward, all members, please remember to direct the questions through the chair, and that you would please, if you in responding, please indicate by activating your microphone as you had done earlier. Now, I will now begin the proceedings, and I have a couple of questions or directions I would like to get from the chairman or the CEO. I have noticed in your submission that on page 11, I've noted that there's been a 73% reduction in the number of vehicles serviced by VMCOTT from 2010 to 2016. And I would like to understand what has happened, because a 73% reduction over a 6-year period is huge for the business that you're running. And the real thought in my mind, if you were geared up to handle 6,000 vehicles, are you at the same level to handle 1,600 vehicles? So I need to understand what has happened and whether or not the company, as it's currently structured, is properly structured to manage this current state of operations, or do you have a plan to turn this around? So Mr. Chairman or Mr. CEO, I'm flexible to who would start to begin the response.
Mr. Chairman, in the period 2010, you would see peak figures. What happens then is that our two most significant clients pulled out. That is the Public Transport Service Corporation and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And as a result of that, our effectiveness was reduced significantly.
Could you tell me what years did the PTS and TTPS withdraw their services?
They both withdrew their services at the end of 2011, 2012.
I know you are new to being the chairman of the company, but would someone help us to understand, if this happened and you've lost your two largest clients, what did the company do to try to keep its operations on an even keel?
We have ventured into a number of initiatives. In addition to which, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago undertook a review of VMCOTT's maintenance services. And we were realigned to do fleet management services, allowing for the extension of services to all businesses and corporate entities, both in the corporate and private sector. And based on those directives, our initiatives have been to go out there and to capture the market that's out there, because we have a large number of vehicles on our roads today. And these are some of the things we have done over the period, concentrating from 12 to present day. We have had a significant marketing and public awareness campaign, and we are offering services to the wider public at this time. We have also approached many of the other ministries that have vehicles and large vehicle fleets as well.
Mr. Chairman, if you can permit me one more question on the same topic. I am questioning my questions about the sustainability of the current business model. So I understand from 2012 you undertaken initiatives. On the basis of what I've seen here, the initiatives don't seem to be bearing fruit. The company has the Parliament's records here show we only have your accounts up until 2012. On your 2012 accounts, you lost $28 million on a revenue of $17 million. So that I am concerned to understand how sustainable is this business, because you've lost your two major clients. You have fixed costs that are approaching have reached a stage where they're outstripping your revenue. So we're trying to understand where you sit, when you sit as a chairman, the sustainability of the business to be able to turn it around. I want to get, because we can't continue operating this business. Certainly if you were the chairman, you'd say, listen, guys, the business has some challenges. Here's how we plan to turn it around. And we need something that is showing results. So from 2012 to now, we've not seen, at least on the information we have, that the strategies have caused a turnaround. So could you help us with a response to that, Mr. Chairman?
What we have had with regard to our financial status is that our receivables have been carried over from a number of years. We have not been able to collect the outstanding monies owed to us from the respective agencies that we have performed work for. At the same time, with regard to the sustainability of the organization itself can become viable if we have the support and the ability to recover receivables. Our receivables at this time amounts to $28 million. We do not have the support of the respective ministries as mandated by the government. And once we have that support, VMCOTT will be a viable organization.
I have one further question, and if you don't have it, I would like to understand because we don't have current information. So this committee would like to understand what is the accumulated losses of the company over the past 5 years. You may not have that in front of you, because while I hear you with the recovering the receivables, so if your receivables are $28 million, and let's say for sake of argument, your accumulated losses are $100 million, then you still have a problem with the business model. So you don't have, if you don't have the information here, the committee would like to receive that information. I have Senator, forgive me, MP Karim, and then followed by Senator Henry. And yeah, so MP Karim, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You did indicate, Mr. Chairman, that you lost your major providers in terms of your revenue stream. Why did they pull out? What was the reason for them pulling out? And after you indicate to us the reason for them pulling out, for them withdrawing from you as providing these services, what did you do to recover? You said something just now that you may have gone outside and gotten some business. Tell us, I understand in 2014, you would have had a loss, if that is so. And have you had any profitability beyond that year? So the first question is, why did they pull out? And secondly, what was the financial status post-2014 to current?
In response to your question, I have to say that there were reasons beyond our control why they pulled out. It was not for want of the deliverables from VMCOTT. The implications of that were political at the time, and hence the reason why PCSC in particular withdrew the maintenance of their vehicles back to PTSC's facility. With regard to the police, around that same period, they acquired new vehicles. So they were able to enjoy the maintenance and repair and service under the warranty of those new vehicles. And they continue to enjoy that at this time because their fleet has increased extensively and they are maximizing that. So it's the older vehicles that we are now repairing for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Prior to that, is it correct to say that some of the period 2010, for example, if you go back into the history of the company, is it correct to say that some of these repairs that were required of VMCOTT were outsourced to other garages even while you were operating? And if so, what was the reason for that?
I would agree with you that some of the repairs were outsourced. And I am not in a position to answer the reason for that, because that was a decision taken by the respective clients. In particular, it continues today. One of the concerns that affects our ability to provide the service that may direct them to go and outsource it with the persons who are private garages outside is that because of our restriction on cash flow, we cannot purchase and acquire spares to be able to give them the repairs that are required. So they take that opportunity to go outside and have it done because the private enterprise is able to use the bank overdraft, purchase their spares, repair the vehicles, and charge a higher amount of money for the work done.
But in terms of your responsibility, your mandate in 2000 was really to establish to service government vehicles. All right, that is when you look at the document that originated your raising debt, as it were. Would you have developed, if you had to outsource, and maybe I'm sure you would have had to outsource during the life and not only necessarily in terms of the last couple of years, if you had to outsource, would you have been able to do an assessment to certify these garages to your standards? Did you have a criteria? And were you able to certify garages from VMCOTT to perform services that you could not have performed on your behalf?
We have certified 3 such garages to date, and those garages are grossly underutilized by the same client. So they choose to go elsewhere where they do not take the opportunity to use those garages that have been certified.
Could you give us a sense as to who are those garages you certified? And if you have information from your market intelligence, what are the other garages that are being used now to service the very vehicles that you would have had and lost?
The garages that were certified met with our criterion. I would prefer, if the chairman would permit me, to submit that in writing rather than making the names public. And the other garages that are being used by that particular client for tire services, for battery services, and for general repairs.
Might you be able to give us a sense? You said that you had a substantial amount of money that will affect your viability. Might you be able to tell us who are some of those persons that continue to have outstanding unpaid balances to your organization that affects your sustainability? And those, if you can tell us the name of the institution or the organization and the amounts. If not today, we'd like to have that in writing, please. But if you can tell us now, it would be useful. I'm sure you came well prepared for some of these questions.
The existing outstanding amounts totaling 28 million is an accumulated sum of 16 million over the period 2000 to present from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and 12.8 million from the Public Transport Service Corporation.
Have you had any communication from them, any commitment as to when your outstanding amounts will be paid?
We have been working closely in an effort to obtain receivables. They themselves are limited by the amount of money that they have available under their respective budgets. The commitment, we just had a meeting recently with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and there is a commitment from the head of finance to try their best to see how they can draw down on that amount of receivables.
I just have one final question in this round. I'll be asking some more. If it is that you are so strapped for cash, and it is, you have people to pay, and imagine we want to find out what is your wages bill and so on, and it's difficult to get the monies owed to you, do you see yourself continuing in business? And if so, how do you plan to do that in the presence of continued deficits?
In the presence of continued deficits, I have asked my line minister to assist in helping us to obtain those receivables. He has had a business plan that was set out by VMCOTT, presented to him, and we have been discussing with PTSC with regard to letting them come to the facility to maximize the services that we provide.
Would you say then that you would describe what you are experiencing now as VMCOTT being an insolvent company?
In reality, when you look at the books, it is in fact an insolvent company because your current assets and your liabilities do not make you a solvent company. But if we had had the opportunity of our respective clients paying their bills in a timely fashion, we would have enjoyed solvency.
Senator Henry.
Morning, everyone. Again, my question is to the first simple question to the CEO is how long have you been with the company, Mr. CEO? And give us a size of the scale of operation, of how many employees and so on, the basic information about the company.
Thank you. My tenure started in November 2013 to present. The staff is approximately 83 people in total, and we have 3 facilities, one at Beetham, one at San Fernando, and one in Tobago.
Okay, so relatively manageable size in
Yes.
terms of, and these 83 people mainly comprise of what, mechanics or?
You have the auto technicians. We have 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3. We have the administrative staff, of course. The technical staff is weighted more because we provide services for the state entities. So, yes.
Okay. Could you give us an idea of the kind of controls you have to assure accountability and transparency? What are your checks and balances in the company? And have there ever been any major issues with misuse of vehicles or problems at the company?
Well, in the recent past, there have been 0 misuse of vehicles. But yes, I understand that in the past there were several instances where there were misuse of vehicles. I also know that the proper process happened in order for the transparency to take place to ensure the perpetrators and I think everything was done at that level so that we know going forward we were able to put in standard operating procedures to ensure that it was kept to either 0, because if you look at the 2016 figures, they were 0, right? So I think we're doing a pretty good job in that aspect.
Can you give us a specific example of the kinds of misuse that might have occurred in the past? Not.
You mean in terms of misuse?
Yes.
Where, let's say, for example, a technician would have used a vehicle without the knowledge of his supervisor to test it, and if for any reason it got damaged, then obviously there would have been an investigation as a result of that. This is how we would term a misuse of a vehicle.
And your annual reports seem to be, like many of the entities we bring here, seem to be a bit behind. Are you moving to get those up to date speedily? I mean, what's the plan of action?
We are working assiduously to have the audited financials up to speed. We have had some setbacks where on 2 occasions the appointment of boards took anywhere between 8 and 9 months. And that happened on 2 occasions. And what happened really is a snowballing effect where without having an AGM, whilst we would have had our financials prepared, we would have had to wait sometimes for 8 or 9 months before we can have an AGM upon installation of a board. So also maybe with the auditor at times, setting dates that were out of our control, maybe a couple of months later than we anticipated, right, would have also been a factor. But we have completed 2013, and we are in the process of doing 2014. And our objective is that by 2018, by 2018 we'll be fully up to date.
Okay, I was just on this round, I just want to ask about something the chairman alluded to before, in terms of the accumulated debt of the company and any kind of sign that you could even be viable to get a profit in anytime soon?
Most definitely. The answer is yes. What I would like to add to the chairman, what he said earlier, is that in 2012, whilst the losses were 28 million, up to 2016, the losses were about $10 million. Yes, we do get a subvention, and the subvention is approximately $800,000 a month. That is basically to pay salaries, some of it. But even though the business has reduced in terms of the throughput of vehicles coming into the compound, we have been able to significantly improve the operations and the efficiency of the operations. So much so that we have been able to reduce our net losses by more than 50%. We have been able to improve our efficiencies in terms of the time taken to repair vehicles. We have put in standard operating procedures that enable us to ensure that the customer now gets a first-class service. We are in the process, we tweak it, we constantly tweak it, so that we feel that we are in a position right now, should we get the support, especially where the receivables are concerned, for the outstanding monies, that VMCOTT and also the enforcement of the mandate, especially for state entities, that VMCOTT will become viable. We are in that position right now.
Okay. And just find quickly, who are your major clients now? We heard about the ones that left, the TTPS and the PTSC. Who are you servicing mainly now?
In terms of state entities right now, we have got the Ministry of Health, we have CPEP, we have a lot of state, a number of them that come in, but not necessarily under a contract term. But we do have, TNTech, for example, has been a pretty new client over the past year and a half, and they are very much satisfied with our service, and they continue to bring in their vehicles on a regular basis. And more importantly is that we have been able to use the limited resources that we have to go out to the general public, to advertise VMCOTT to the public. And we have been able to successfully achieve in the San Fernando branch a Saturday operation, for that matter. VMCOTT was an institution where we were never open on a Saturday, right? And we feel as a service provider for vehicles, that is something that we need or we should have done. We have incorporated that in the San Fernando about 5 or 6 months ago, and we have just started at the Beetham facility. So we are doing things. We are doing some ads. We are also engaged in other activities for income generation. For example, the Mayaro Regional Corporation is one corporation where we have recently signed an MOU. We are currently managing their facility, and we charge them a fee to do so. We also supply them with parts to service and repair their vehicles. We train their staff. And there are other regional corporations that we are currently engaged with to do the same, to provide that service for them for fleet maintenance management.
All right, the next round.
Senator Mark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And good morning to the team. I just want to follow up on what Mr. Lester Henry, Dr. Henry rather, raised a short while ago. And that has to do with, could you tell us, or maybe submit in writing, who are your hardcore clients as opposed to your temporary clients who will come in and you're not sure to see them for the next year or maybe the next 6 to 8 months, whereas, as you said, TNTech is a new kid on the block and you seem to have it locked down. Could you provide to the committee in writing your hardcore customers and those that are purely temporary and transient in that respect. Now, as Mr. Fazal Karim indicated earlier, when VMCOTT was established back then in 2000, its mandate was to service government vehicles and not to compete with the private or corporate sector. Because obviously of unsatisfactory service, because of maybe high costs brought about by inefficiencies and an absence of speedy quality delivery to your clients. You have had a withdrawal, because I do not believe that even though you buy new vehicles, as in the case of the police service, and they get warranties that can take them for a year, they would necessarily have to leave VMCOTT. Because every one of us knows that when you buy a vehicle, you get a warranty, and it can last 6 months, maybe a max of a year. But after that, you have to service your vehicles. So it appears to me, Mr. Chairman, that the malady is a little more serious. Something is causing your big customers to leave your services and seek interventions from the private sector. And it is something that you will need to really look at very seriously. It brings me to the question of your strategic plan. I don't understand how an organization experiencing the difficulties and challenges that you are currently experiencing could proceed without a roadmap for recovery, for revival, for profitability. So the question I wish to ask the chairman, through our chairman, is there a strategic plan? Does VMCOTT have a strategic plan? If it does, what is the period of that plan? And could you make a copy or copies available to us so that we can better appreciate when the CEO says to a question raised by Mr. Henry, Dr. Henry, that profitability is around the corner? That is easy to say. But what are the concrete plans? What are the concrete objectives of this organization to realize profitability within a period of 2 years or 3 years? So I am asking the question, does VMCOTT have a strategic plan? And if it does, could you provide copies to this committee?
Mr. Chair, in response to the question, we do have a strategic plan. It covers the period 14 to present, and the board has reviewed that plan to extend it to 2018. We have also, coming out of that plan, a transformation plan. I have a copy here, and I will provide for the committee both plans at a later date.
So that's very good. You have a strategic plan, you have a transformation plan, and you indicated earlier that you have a corporate business plan, which I suspect you will make available to this committee. Could you share with us, therefore, what is your timeline for the turnaround of this organization? When do you expect this organization to remove itself from state dependency, and we would not have the responsibility as a state to provide VMCOTT with $800,000 every month to pay salary and wages? When are we going to see VMCOTT being able to break even and begin to make profits, so it would not be dependent on the state for transfers? Could you share with us what is your vision for a timeline to make VMCOTT profitable?
We have set a period of 2020 for VMCOTT to become profitable. We are well on the way to doing that because we have significantly reduced our subventions over the period 2010 to present, reducing it to approximately 800 per month. So we are benchmarking ourselves with the period 2020 to become fully profitable.
And if you do not become fully profitable by 2020, would you agree with me that the time would have arrived for us to reconsider this business model and determine whether it should be re-examined with a view to taking measures to relieve that organization of its mandate in the future? In other words, should we close down VMCOTT if by 2020 we do not see it breaking even and making a profit, but it is more dependent on the state by that time, if we do not realize that objective or goal as you have defined? Do you think that the time would have arrived then, by 2020, for us to reconsider that business model?
I do not agree with that. We have taken some initiatives, and one of the very important initiatives is the relationship we have with NGC CNG. A government mandate has indicated that there is a requirement of 17,500 vehicles to be converted to CNG. And VMCOTT is the only state entity that has been considered to be the main player in doing this conversion. That also allows for the continued socio-economic participation of the private sector. So in addition to VMCOTT, you can have, there are 3 or 4 other private sector organizations that would be doing this conversion. And it is clear that the viability of VMCOTT can be achieved by 2020.
Now, could you could you provide us with a detailed timeline for VMCOTT's commencement of the CNG conversion of state vehicles, seeing that you are strategically placed and you might be the only organization in this country to convert 17,500 vehicles, which I believe the majority would be state vehicles? When are we going to commence VMCOTT, that conversion process? Have you started? Could you tell us how many vehicles you have converted to CNG? and how many you anticipate to convert within the next 12 months, as an example. Could you share with us that, Mr. Chairman?
We have started training our technicians while we wait on the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries to give us the respective license. We have applied for that license since September 2015, and we have continued to provide them with all of the necessary requests they have sent to us to fulfill our application. In the meantime, we have signed off on an MOU with the NGC CNG, and we have already established a supplier for all of the respective kits. It is anticipated that once we get the license, we just need a 30-day lead time to be able to commence. So I could say to you that if we get the license in June of 2017, we can commence at the beginning of August 2017.
What, Mr. Chairman, would you attribute for the delay in issuing this license to VMCOTT? I am astounded to hear that you have applied since 2015. This is February the 7th, 2017. And you have the equipment to convert 17,500 state vehicles to CNG. And we are yet to obtain a license for VMCOTT from the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries. Why has it taken so long? And could you advise the chairman, what can we do to help you acquire this license to make your organization viable and profitable and avoid closure as a state entity?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the member for giving me the opportunity to ask for your intervention, because I am unable to indicate why it has taken this long. What I can say is that we have been following up on a regular basis, and at present, it is my understanding that the application is with the OSHA department of the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries, going through the requisite checks to ensure that we are up to par with the application.
But, Mr. Chairman, for a year, a whole year, and almost 3 months, and they are still going through this process, something has to be wrong, Mr. Chairman. I mean, you say we have a chairman here who has been an energy expert in the same ministry as a former expert, and maybe he will advise us privately what could be causing this. But it is amazing that it has taken so long for them to issue a license to VMCOTT. But I'll pause at this time, Mr. Chairman, and allow my other colleagues to continue.
The chairman would like to just follow up, because I'm listening to the responses, and at this stage, I'm not convinced. But let me deal with the issue of the CNG. So I saw this in a submission, and I understand you have the MOU. Here's how the chairman has put this into our thought process. In 2010, VMCOTT was servicing, at least serviced 6,000 vehicles. And in 2016, you serviced 1,600. So that's 70% reduction. I assume that your staff numbers have remained more or less stable during that period of time. If not, correct me.
Mr. Chairman, it has been reduced.
It's been reduced by?
By about 25%.
25%, okay. When I look at the proposal in the MOU and in your submission, the plan is to convert 500 vehicles a month. That's
Mr.
what-
Chair, if you would permit me, that was a typographical error. It's supposed to be 50 a month.
Well,
500 way surpasses our capability.
well,
So
I
that
did-
would have
So
caused
you see where I was going?
Yes,
Because I
yes.
couldn't understand how you could hope to convert 500 vehicles. That would be 25 a day. That's logistically impossible. Well, you've helped me with that because it just didn't seem to make any sense. So that's a typo in your document, and I appreciate the clarification on that. But let me ask one more question before I give the floor to another member, because I'm trying to understand how the various ways in which this company could survive. We've heard it from you. As it stands now, VMCOTT is insolvent and has been insolvent for the past couple of years. That's on the record. What we're trying to understand is a plan to get it out of insolvency and from dependence on the state purse. I think everyone here understands the current financial situation of the country, given the current revenue status of the government. And we have to be a little more proactive, trying to understand ways in which we could turn enterprises around. As it currently exists, VMCOTT, while it may not be losing huge money, it's losing money. So I have a question here. I saw one of your initiatives to introduce an automated car wash facility in San Fernando, and you're planning one at Beetham. I would like to understand what is the capital investment here, and what are the returns? What is the investment, and what is the return? Has the returns on the one in San Fernando yielded enough to be able to say that this has been a profitable venture?
Mr. Chairman, the capital investment on the car wash in San Fernando was $1.3 million. And in 1 year, we were able to cover that and turn over our profit, which we use to assist in some of the overheads that we have. So we make an average of about $80,000 per month on that simple car wash. But that is an ancillary to the service we provide, because when you're doing maintenance of a vehicle, a client loves to have a vehicle that is repaired or serviced and washed. So he comes back to your garage and picks up a clean vehicle. So that has significantly assisted us in making some revenue.
Well, I appreciate that, because that is what I want to hear from the company, that you're looking to try to find ways to sustain your operations, so that on an ancillary service you made an investment, and according to what you're telling the committee now, that investment is profitable, and you're planning to roll that out to your other operation here at the Beetham. So I'm happy to hear that. I have a couple more questions, but for now, I will give the floor to MP Karim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you indicated that you seem to have been doing a little better during the period 2010 to 2015, but that you might be able to get sustainability and profitability by 2020. Why will it take so long to have this turnaround from where we are now? Or even when you assumed office in late 2015 or even 2016. What are your major constraints to not being able to have a turnaround in a shorter period of time?
Mr. Chair, in answering the member, my major constraint is the inability to recover the outstanding debts owed to VMCOTT. And that is affecting my capability of purchasing spares and having the ability to repair vehicles on a timely basis, because we have a downtime. When we don't have the spares stocked, the same client that owes us money comes to us and says, hey, I have an X-Trail to repair. Can you repair it? And we have to say, unfortunately, we don't have the spare available. So they take it to a garage outside and have it repaired. This is what is affecting us. So once we can get the support to obtain our receivables, it would give us a capital to start with. Some of the initiatives we have used and we are exploring is going to give us a substantial income. For example, we are well poised with Beetham being on the bus route. And we have a proposal, and we've entered into some discussions with establishing a CNG location there for distribution of CNG. We can capture all of the government vehicles using the bus route. We can capture all of the maxi taxis on the east-west corridor. And we can even assist PTSC with fueling their CNG vehicles. And these are some of the things that we look forward to making it a viable organization within the period 2017 to 2020.
You know, for example, if you establish for effectively repairing and maintaining government fleet, and that is not happening because your major clients have left you, and they have gone into the private sector. They're now sending their vehicles to private garages. You will have to obviously diversify your product offering or your services. You just indicated that you had a car wash in San Fernando, and it has even surpassed maybe the expectation. Why is it that, or if you can tell us, but I'm asking the question in this way, what other product diversification that you are going to be engaging in with permission or authorization to capture that lost market share and return you to improve profitability quicker? Let me give you an example. I have not seen advertisements in VMCOTT for same-day repairs, like you have same-day surgeries. I've not seen that. You're saying that you are adequately and purposefully placed on a strategic location. You have opened a car wash in San Fernando. Maybe there's none like that in San Fernando. But there may be one in Port of Spain area that is overburdened, and there is a market share for you to open another one. And 15, 16 months has gone, and you have not really pursued that as yet. Is it not possible as well, and instead of people going to pay the garages and cash outside for their services, that you can develop some new strategies to make your organization, VMCOTT, very viable? So the question really is, what are these other diversified product ranges? Because I want to come to a substantial question, which I want you to answer truthfully. Not that you're not answering truthfully. Do you feel that VMCOTT is suffering from a poor brand reputation?
Mr. Chair, allow me to respond to, first of all, our diversification initiatives. We have entered into a relationship with another state entity, NP, to provide a line of ultra care products. We have recently been able to outfit our own technicians with coveralls that are carrying a VMCOTT logo and a NP Ultra Care logo. We are offering to the general public a range of services. For example, if you have a 4-cylinder vehicle, you can come and have an oil change. We provide you with the filter, the oil, and a 50-point check on your vehicle to determine the effectiveness of the vehicle, or if you have any defects. We can do on-the-spot repairs of your vehicle for $2,800 per annum. So if you enter into that arrangement with VMCOTT, you will be provided with these services. We've partnered with NP to do that. We've partnered with NP, and we are in discussions of establishing a fuel point, not only for CNG, but for other petrol, oils, and lubricants at VMCOTT. Beetham location. We have also embarked on doing a car wash at the Beetham location, because we've done some surveys and we realized that on that highway passing VMCOTT, you have over 40,000 cars per day passing along there. We have also gone into rebranding VMCOTT, because I must admit, when the CEO and the board and I look at the image that VMCOTT has, it is tainted. It is tainted with a perception by the government ministries and the fleet managers in those ministries and the general public that VMCOTT is only there to repair government vehicles. One of the things we are doing is establishing a new logo and doing some upgrading of our facility at this point in time.
So, Chairman, I want to ask you a direct question again. Are you satisfied that VMCOTT, because I have not seen, even in the newspaper or on the television or in other forms of advertisements, are you satisfied that you are aggressively pursuing increased market share for the services that you offer? And if you're not, what do you plan to do about that?
Because of our budget constraints, we cannot engage in a very aggressive marketing campaign. But however, we've put ads into the newspaper. We've gone out to billboards. We have also engaged the capturing of our market share by doing the various road shows. We have done one at Twin City Mall, and we captured a significant client of a fleet of 150 vehicles, approximately. We also did one in San Fernando Gulf City, and we proposed to have one at Long Circular and one in Tobago.
So, Chairman, just again pursue, because I want to assess, like my colleagues, and seeing whether we can advise or share our experiences in terms of how you can improve your margins and certainly your productivity. In terms of providing services, suppose, for example, because you said that you had crawling, you had traffic jams, 40,000 vehicles every day going to and from the city. Suppose that you were to give, or you have somebody who will give a flyer. I'm just saying very rudimentary. You have somebody stand there, like you see away when you travel and so on, you have somebody at a sign and so on. Give a flyer to these vehicles. Do you feel you have the capacity to service and to respond to the demands of that increased aggressive advertising strategies that you would have embarked? And I want to ask that in the context of this, of the equipment and the personnel, and I'm going to ask a specific question on personnel, but of the equipment, do you have all of your equipment, or what percentage of your equipment are operating at full efficiency or near full efficiency? Or what percentage do you have down and not functioning because of the inability to provide repair services to that equipment? Because it's one thing to invite people to come to the facility, but when they do, they might be frustrated because you can't satisfy them on time.
We do have the appropriate equipment. We've been upgrading our equipment. Recently, we acquired a nitrofilm machine. We just got one of the state-of-the-art air-conditioned units that you just attach the system. It gives you a readout of your vehicle and can give you the opportunity to hold whatever gas you have while it would clear the system and replace it and add to that. We have some of the state-of-the-art equipment. We are also in the process of purchasing some new equipment to upgrade some of the transmission state-of-the-art equipment we used to have, because I recall that I had the privilege of looking at VMCOTT when it was established in 2000. I went there myself in 2002, and I was really impressed. And I continue to be impressed with the capacity that the organization has. And I can say to you that it is grossly underutilized. Because if you look at the records, in 2010, we were able to have a throughput of 1,600 vehicles. We have the capacity. 6,000, sorry, overall. And that is grossly underutilized today.
But tell us, why is that? Because if you were having some good metrics in the period 2010 coming up, why is it, apart from the fact that you have your two major clients may have pulled out, certainly if you want to continue to exist and a client is pulling out or two clients are pulling out, you must be able to find somebody or some people or go on the road and whatever, as you have been doing, and a roadshow in a mall is not going to do it. That's only sensitization that will give you a small percentage of that return on the investment. But what is it that you're going to be doing now? Let me give you an example. I think it's the CEO that indicated that you are providing services to the Mayaro Regional, Rio Claro Mayaro Regional Corporation, and that you are training their persons. So if I ask the question, how many of your persons who are going out to train people, how many of them are certified with the qualification and the certification called Train the Trainer? It is one thing to know something. It is another thing to deliver effectively for knowledge to be absorbed by the recipient. How many persons would you have in your technical group who have been certified and trained? And I'll give you another opportunity, and I'll share with you a way in which you can also make some money when you answer this question.
We have our workshop supervisors who are trained and certified as trainers. All of our supervisors.
By whom, may I ask?
By NESC.
By the NESC?
Yes, sir.
Right. And are you utilizing the facilities? You see, you spoke about CNG and the challenges. In the meantime, NESC provides training for technicians in CNG conversion. Why, while you are awaiting the approval from the Ministry of Energy, is it not possible to consider, to conceptualize, even outsourcing for conversion on your behalf to make a profitability through somebody like the NESC?
We have had NESC train our personnel already, and we have trained them, and they're just waiting an opportunity. We are also engaging with an organization who will supply the respective parts for the installation.
Sorry, if I may interrupt, because I think you probably misunderstand. Let me be a little more specific. I'm saying that you are waiting to be approved as a facility to deliver CNG as a station and training and so on. In the meantime, you have NESC, the National Energy Skills Center, that has a direct contractual relationship with NGC, CNG. Is it possible for you to conceptualize or to consider your at arm's length relationship for your future profitability with VMCOTT until such time that you get your approval? So you ask the NESC, because they have the facilities, they have a big garage and yard at Point Lisas, at the roundabout, and they have a relationship with NGC, to act on your behalf so that you will be able as well to leverage your critical skills.
Certification is the concern here, and I am not sure that NESC is certified for CNG conversions.
I can assure you, you could check.
I will do that.
It is, in fact, they would not have been able to have an agreement with NGC had they not been properly certified and even to some extent accredited. There's an accreditation council of Trinidad and Tobago, and one of the first technical vocational institutions to be accredited was the Metal Industries Company Limited. The NESC, together with YTEP, are the major providers. Because I have some questions I want to, but I'm just suggesting, let me give you an example, since you raised the NESC. The NESC, together with the MIC and YTEP, were pioneers in what we refer to as the WAC. A WAC is a workforce assessment center. And there's an opportunity as well for you with your state-of-the-art equipment in both San Fernando, in BTM, and in Tobago, and I will ask a question on Tobago later on, to be assessed and to be certified as an approved center to certify those mechanics and technicians in our country who may have knowledge, skills, and competencies, but no certification. You might be surprised to know how many persons will come to you to pay for that facility, to be screened against the national occupational standards, to be checklisted, and to be certified at levels, whether it is level 1 or level 2, and there's a hierarchy of levels. So I'm suggesting you may wish to consider that in your diversified portfolio to increase revenue generation.
Thank you. I want to just switch topics a bit now. I want to actually address this question to the operations manager. In your submission here, on page, I think, 12, you indicate that because you have a lack of required equipment, sometimes it necessitates, according to your words, performing repairs the old school way. Could you explain what that means? If you're performing, is there an old school way and a new school way? So it doesn't make sense to me. So I need someone to explain to me, if you don't have the equipment, it means that you perform it the old school way. Could you help us to understand what that means?
Well, when we say old school way, we talk about basics, because mechanical start from the basic level, and of course, we have equipment, because of the symptoms we experience from the basic. What happens, we now upgrade and we use scanners. Some of the equipment we have, we just have little difficulties getting into the type of technology that these vehicles that they come with. So what we do, we go back to the old school ways. For example, we might disconnect the battery, do some, just some basic things on the vehicle and then disconnect the battery, leave it overnight and see if that will work. And in most cases, because the mechanics from our industry, they started from inception of VMCOTT, they already knows the symptoms of vehicles. So although we might not have the technology to go into the vehicle, however, the expertise from their experience in the past, that is what helped us to get through to perform the maintenance repairs, most of them that is, or the technical issues.
I have one other question in that area, because in another part of the submission, you say that we service all makes and models of vehicles. Now, that's a significant statement. You service all makes and models of vehicles of the general public. So my question is, how is this a statement that we could rely on? And then the attendant to that, if you're servicing a vehicle, are you replacing it with original parts? Or is it dependent on the customer saying, I don't mind using original parts, or I prefer to use a generic part? I need to understand, because when you make a statement like that, it's a significant statement. We service all makes and models of vehicles of the general public.
Well, Mr. Chairman, what we're saying, we don't turn away any customer with any make or model of vehicle that come to VMCOTT. We, because of our technical capabilities, we do attempt to get it done. However, approval is given by the customer, whether they want genuine parts or aftermarket parts. So we give them an option to choose from. And they make the decision, they approve it, and then we move forward to continue with the repairs.
Interesting. The chairman has just one other question in this round, and before I turn it over. I saw in your submission that you indicated to this committee that in 2016, a foreign supplier shipped vehicles that did not meet the full specifications. And VMCOTT did not return the vehicles, but they were sold to offset. So I would like to understand the nature of this transaction. How many vehicles, what type of money are we talking about? Is it one vehicle, is it 10? I need to understand what you're talking about here. Your vehicles were ordered from a foreign supplier, they didn't meet the specifications, you all didn't send it back and ask your money back, you didn't return it, you essentially said we were sold to offset some of VMCOTT's debts. I don't understand that, because what is the process, the chain of, if you order the vehicles, on whose behalf, who paid for the vehicles that allows you to sell it? I don't understand. Could you help us to understand what you mean here?
Mr. Chairman, the chain of events was that VMCOTT won a tender to supply vehicles for a particular client.
Yeah.
In the submission of their tender specifications, they asked for certain requirements which we sent then to the manufacturer. The manufacturer shipped the vehicles to Port of Spain. On arrival, it came in 2 or 3 months later than anticipated, because at the time of manufacture, there was a long period of delay at the plant and extended holidays for that region. Upon arrival, the client was advised that the vehicles arrived, and they granted us permission to have them licensed. So in an effort to make up on the time loss, we were able to license these vehicles and have them there. When they came and they looked at the vehicle, they realized that the vehicles had no mud guards, and the vehicle capacity of cubic size was short by about 20 cubic meters. And they made a significant fuss about that. Very, very small. It's like taking into consideration a flat top panel van and a high top panel van. So at that juncture, we offered them the opportunity to place the mud guards on the vehicle and asked them if they would kindly consider accepting the vehicles, and they refused. We were then left with the vehicles in our hands. Sometime subsequent to that, we noticed an ad in the newspaper where they put out another tender for the same kind of vehicle. By this time, we had registered those vehicles at TGJs, and we had reached TDK. So when we asked them if they would accept those vehicles on this new tender, they did not. We were then forced to find other means of disposing of the vehicles. And what we did is that there were persons who we owed large sums of money to, and we asked them to offset the cost by accepting one or two of those vehicles.
So in terms of financial exposure of the company, you would have purchased the vehicles based on the tender you received. And then the receiving party refused to accept them. And then you essentially found another buyer to take the vehicles. I'm trying to understand, was VMCOTT cash positive or cash negative from this whole chain of transactions?
VMCOTT would have made a substantial profit on that tender, but the reason why and when the client denied accepting it, we were cash negative as a consequence.
Yeah. So that after you sold them, that's what I'm getting at. So you would have put out money, vehicles arrived, the intended purchaser refused to accept them, and you found alternative means of disposing the vehicles. What I'm trying to do, in terms of the monies received via selling the vehicles, so the alternative means, whether you settled offset debts or whatever, was that enough to cover what you had put out to purchase the vehicles in the first place and the licensing costs and all of that?
Yes, it was.
It was. So you were, on the transaction, you didn't lose money.
Correct.
But that's what I needed to understand. I think Senator Henry has a question.
Okay, Mr. Chair, just to follow up on that before I go to my other question, was there anything in the contract that you signed with the person, the entity, to deliver, to supply these vehicles that you could have taken action? And why did they were able to just refuse to take the vehicles? Did you have a fallback position? Like saying, well, no, you gave us this contract to bring in these vehicles, how could you refuse now? What, that sounds a little bit, generous to me.
It sounds a little iffy, but at that time, we did not have a fallback position. With regard to the specifications, they claimed that we were outside of the specifications, and therefore, legal requirement obligated us to honor it as it was.
Okay. I want to turn to page 18 in your submission under training and connect with the question in terms of your ability to gain business. Under training, you said here in the box diagram, due to financial constraints, VMCOTT's technical staff are not exposed to the extent of training that technicians from competing organizations receive, right? That's so I'm looking at how do you market yourself then? If you're basically admitting that these other guys have better training than us, why would I bring my car to you? What would be your advantage? How could you convince me that it'd be worthwhile to stop on the bottom and drive in and say, okay, I'm comfortable with these guys here?
With regard to the training aspect of it, the financial constraints don't allow us to train many people all at once. So we engage with NESC, and we try our best to have some trainer programs where we do a lot of in-house training. There are some instances where we require people to go abroad and obtain training. And as a result of that, because we don't have the financial capacity, we ask the intended trainer to come to Port of Spain and do that training for us. But that doesn't negate the fact that we don't have the capability to fix, repair, or service vehicles. What we're saying here, and maybe it was not well put in the document, is that there are instances where there are financial constraints which inhibit our ability to train personnel up to a standard and in numbers at the same time.
Because, well, I'm still trying to get at your competitive strength, really. What would you market your company as being capable of that we might want to come to you rather than go to the competitors? Because, okay, yes, because, I mean, we are supposed to have almost 1 million vehicles on the road in this country, right? Somewhere close to that. Almost one per person. And this could be a very lucrative business if you can attract the customers. And because all vehicles have to be serviced at some point, right? So what the broader question I was getting at is, why would we come to you? Why would we, how do you sell, VMCOTT in such a way that I would want to stop when I'm heading up the bus route and say, okay, I'm pulling over here for service?
There are two principal reasons. We have significant competitive prices, and we have persons who are trained and certified at various levels. And one of the things that was alluded to earlier by the chairman was that when we say we fix any make and model of vehicle, our technicians are trained not just in specialized vehicles, so that we can repair a brand of vehicle from all makes and models of distributors. In addition to which, it doesn't matter what the age of the vehicles, we effectively repair them. We have been established in 2000, and it was, at that point in time, a state-of-the-art repair shop. It has been the perception of other persons that we have lost some of that. But I can assure you that we are still state-of-the-art. We upgrade our equipment, and we upgrade our personnel and our training on a regular basis to meet those standards.
Okay, but competitiveness generally has something to do with your costs and your price. You didn't make any reference to that, meaning that I might want to bring my car to you because it might be cheaper than going to the original maker. Can you say something along those lines that could help us understand what, is bringing my car to VMCOTT going to cost me less for the similar type of service, or is it going to be more? Or how do you gauge that?
Bringing your car to VMCOTT could cost you less for higher quality service. And that is what I was saying earlier, because our prices are very competitive. What the people are doing, in particular in San Fernando, the garages around San Fernando are now using our pricing as their benchmark to go below that and to capture the market out there. We have done some research and we've discovered that.
Okay.
Senator Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there was a question that was asked earlier dealing with the non-submission of administrative reports, which, in accordance with the Constitution, supposed to be submitted to His Excellency once a year. And then they will send, those reports will be sent by His Excellency to the Parliament. Could you tell this meeting or committee when last you submitted? I'm making a distinction between your financial audited statements and accounts and that of administrative reports. Could you tell this committee when last did VMCOTT submit administrative reports to the Parliament of the Republic of TNT?
We are up to date with the submissions of our administrative reports.
You are up to date?
We are. We got feedback from our corporate secretary that we have met our timelines and we are up to date. One of the few state entities that has been.
So the last time you submitted an administrative report would have been sometime for 2016?
That's correct.
Okay. Let me just proceed to another matter. It's a press release dated December the 11th, 2015, issued by Caribbean Information and Credit Rating Services Limited. And they were dealing specifically with VMCOTT as it relates to the level of credit worthiness of this organization within the Caribbean region and within TNT. They described it as weak, the credit worthiness of VMCOTT as weak. And it went on to state that VMCOTT's ratings continue to be constrained by persistent deficits, which were driven mainly by the high, unsustainable operating expenses relative to revenue, and that the company tight liquidity position as measured by the long cash conversion cycle on account of high receivables that you mentioned earlier. Now, this was as a result, and I want you to listen carefully, this was as a result of weak internal controls. Weak internal controls, though improving, and low plant capacity utilization, which you alluded to earlier, which would have contributed to the poor financial performance. Now, what is being said by this rating agency is that there is weak management, and that was in December of 2015. A year would have passed and a couple months. So weak management and poor internal controls. Your internal auditor is here. Could you tell us what would have happened between the issuing of this statement by the Caribbean Information and Credit Rating Services Limited, then in 2015 December, now as we speak? What have we done to address weak management and poor and weak internal controls since that period?
Mr. Chair, in response, I'd like to highlight that in interpreting the weak internal controls does not necessarily mean weak management, in the sense that there are policy procedures and practices which may have had some loopholes, allowing for our controls to be considered by this organization to be weak. We have utilized our internal auditor on a regular basis, and one of the things we just completed in 2016 was an internal audit of our stores and procurement procedure, which is inhibited by the fact that economy of scales cannot be achieved because we do not have the cash flow we're supposed to have. In tightening up the system of stores and in having the procurement unit procure the right parts have helped us in establishing some SOPs which will reduce those weak internal controls. And my internal auditor here is spot on with helping me with achieving the mapping process in providing efficient systems that would be control measures to ensure that we tighten up on those inefficiencies.
Would you say that your operating expenses is being aggressively addressed to bring it in line with your revenue streams so that that weak management element that was alluded to and your lack of credit worthiness are being addressed by the management and the board of directors at this time?
Yes, my response to that simply is yes. We, the board of directors, working in close collaboration with management, have taken some directives, stringent directives, to reduce those inefficiencies and to tighten up with management's activity to ensure that we are able to recover some of our debts and to reduce some of our expenses. Over the period 2010 to 2016, we've significantly reduced our expenses. In 2010, our expenses amounted to approximately 26 million, and by 2016, we've reduced that to 13 million. So we are working assiduously in bringing this down, and both board and management in establishing good policy and procedures have been working closely on this.
What systems would you want to advise, and what system have you effected to ensure that your receivables are honored on a timely basis to avoid your good self and your management team having to go cap in hand to ministers of government to literally beg them to please get the police service to honor their commitments to you, to plead with the PTSC to honor their commitments to you. So in all, you have $28 million in receivables outstanding from these two main entities. What mechanisms have you put in place? What systems have you put in place to avoid a recurrence or a repetition of that experience in the future, where you would not have to have this huge amount of money outstanding, which is hampering your operations? You could use that money to buy spares, so when people come to repair their cars from the state sector, you don't have to tell them you don't have parts, and they have to leave you and go to the private sector. What are you doing to close that gap and to ensure that you do not have a repeat of that occurrence that you are now saddled with? I wanted to ask you what mechanisms you are contemplating introducing to avoid this situation in the future.
We have a new approach to invoicing our client on a weekly basis, so that we send the invoices to them, letting them know that the jobs have been completed and these are the outstanding payments. We do that on a weekly basis. In some instances, we do that with a liaison from the respective organization who is our client at the location. So they themselves certify that the job was done, job was completed, and sign off on it. We have been in talks with other boards. As the chairman myself, I engaged with other persons who are on other executive boards to fast-track the payment and to reduce the receivables. There are instances where there have been claims of unsubstantiated documentation, and we are making an effort to have all of that rectified in the shortest possible time. But we have put systems in place to improve the efficiency of record keeping and invoicing at VMCOTT. Before that, it was a very poor system that was in place. But closely working with management, we've tightened that up.
Final question. Mr. Chairman, as it relates to procurement, which you have emphasized repeatedly during your contribution, you are aware that the Public Procurement and Sale of Public Property Act, according to the Minister of Finance, on the records of Parliament, is supposed to be operationalized by the 31st of March, 2017, which is next month. Could you share with this committee what steps VMCOTT has taken to prepare itself in line with the new provisions outlined in the Public Procurement and Sale of Property Act, so that your organization would not be in breach of the law when it is fully operationalized on or before the 31st of March, which would include training of personnel, making sure you have a unit that is fully aligned with the provisions of the legislation, and as I said, familiarizing your entire management and board with the provisions of the Public Procurement and Sale of Property Act. So I just wanted you to share with us, Mr. Chairman, whether you are preparing the grounds, whether you are aware, whether you have familiarized yourself with the legislation in preparation for its full operationalization come March 31st, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, in response to the member, we are aware, and my acting finance manager to my right has attended a number of courses with regard to the compliance for the regulation of the new Procurement Act. We are in the process of appointing the staff and training the staff for that purpose. And we are well poised to be ready for the 31st of March.
MP Carib.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of questions which I'd like to ask. First of all, I just want to get, for the purposes of the records, that since you said that the TTPS is one of the clients you lost, that all of these police vehicles, which we see at various garages, that none of those garages were approved by you for servicing of police vehicles. Am I correct to say that?
Mr. Chair, in response to the member, I'd like to clarify a statement that was made very earlier with regard to the loss of clientele. We did not lose the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. At the time, 2011, there was a withdrawal by both PTSC and the TTPS. TTPS continues to be a client, a significant client of ours. And one of the things that they have done is that they have brought to us, VMCOTT, at each of the locations, the one in Tobago, the one in San Fernando, the one in Port of Spain, vehicles for repairs. But they select the vehicles that they choose to bring. And then they go outside to private contractors with other vehicles. The thing that contributes to that is that they would come into VMCOTT bring the vehicle there and ask us if we can repair it. If we don't have the cash flow to procure the parts and spares to repair it, we tell them no. Then they use that as justification to go outside to those private garages, which are not certified. Because we can tell you, we know for a fact that the ones that were certified are underutilized. They're not even being used to have a single vehicle repaired there.
So again, if I may just reconfirm your answer. The police vehicles that we see at garages in Trinidad, I can't say about Tobago, no, I haven't seen any, but I see some here. Those vehicles are being sent to garages that are not certified and were not directed by you, VMCOTT.
That's correct.
Right. Second question I wanted to ask is with respect to your operating centers, Beetham, San Fernando, and Tobago. Can you tell us, for example, based on your current staff establishment, how many persons are employed at each of these facilities, Beetham, Port of Spain, and San Fernando and Tobago? And can you give us an idea as to how, let's say for a year, the year of 2016, how many persons are employed at each of these locations? How many vehicles were serviced for that year? And what were the kind of revenues, you have your finance person here, that were generated for the year 2016?
In the year 2016, we employed 28 persons at the Beetham facility, 22 at the San Fernando facility, and 7 in the Tobago facility. These are our staff. For 2016, the actual figures. Right. For expenses.
But can I ask before you go there, you said there are 28 and 22 and the 7. Let's say, for example, in each of these, how many of those, like in Tobago you have 7, how many of those were administration and how many of those were technicians or mechanics? And if you can give me that, I want to go to a certain, I'm moving in a certain direction to assist you. But if you can tell me of the breakdown of staff, how many would you consider to be administrative and how many would you consider to be technical, mechanics, technicians? So.
We have about 25% who will be administrative, so that in Tobago, we will have 2 persons who are administrative. We have 1 workshop supervisor and 4 technicians.
Okay, you see, the reason why I'm asking that as well is that you indicated earlier on that you, as part of your turnaround strategy and revenue generation, that you have entered into an arrangement with NP. Can you tell us, for example, because I want to go into further discussion now in terms of the operating expenses and profitability. Can you say that relationship with NP, what that will be done for your benefit in terms of what is that going to present you with? How much are you going to get out of that relationship on a projection basis?
We project to have significant revenue earnings from that because the relationship that we are entering into, we will have them put out a significant amount of capital to establish the car care centers, to help us with rebranding, and to provide us with the lubricants and canopy for one of our gas stations. We estimate that that could bring in a revenue of approximately $1 million annually from the beginning, from the onset, from the jump go, and it will increase over time.
Okay. For example, you're saying that one of the things that is happening currently is that other private providers are benchmarking their services, their cost, on basis of what you have as your cost. So if, for example, we take an average middle-size, a mid-range vehicle, a motor car, and with this relationship with NP, you're getting free advertisement here today. And you have to, I am driving into VMCOTT in San Fernando, and I say, okay, I want to get my filter changed, my oil change, and so on. And in addition to with your labor, what would that cost somebody for a mid-range vehicle? Based on what you are saying, as a competitive strategy now.
That would cost them approximately $600.
So $600 with you supplying the filter, about 5 quarts of oil, and labor.
Correct.
Well, that might not be so competitive. You can check it around the town. You might need to look at it again, and you can see how you can become even more competitive. Because if you look at other, I think you've been advised?
I'm being advised that that's in comparison to dealerships.
Or dealerships?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Because the dealerships would charge for that kind of service about $2,700.
Well, I don't think a dealership, any dealership, I can tell you from my personal experience, might charge $2,700 to change a filter, 5 quarts of oil, and labor, just for changing oil. You see, if you look at the concept, I don't want to promote any international brand, but you have a quick lube, and rather than using another word which might be identifiable. You just drive in, and again, if you were to even look at how your facility is configured at the BTAM, it is not user-friendly or attractive for the motoring public. And you might want to look at that aspect of it too. So again, I'm asking the question. I feel you will want to give me another cost in the future. But if you had to, I have to drive in, I'm a drive-in customer, I wanted my oil change, my filter change, and your labor to change that. Are you saying that that is going to cost $500 at VMCOTT or $600? What is it really going to cost you to be competitive? And it's not only about the dealership. You cannot only benchmark against a dealership because you are not a dealer. You are a service provider. What will that minimum, efficient, effective, profitable cost center be?
I will have to get back to you on that.
I suspected so. I want to also go into the question of internal audit, because oftentimes we do not hear about some of the losses, and I'm using the terminology here in its very wide perspective. Can you say over the last year, for example, or whatever period you want to give me, whether were there any identifiable, noticeable losses, and if these were true, that were picked up in internal audit that hemorrhaged the profitability of VMCOTT? And if so, could you give us some specifics?
Over the last year or so, to respond to your question, internal audit has continuously reviewed and assessed VMCOTT's internal control framework environment. We have brought to the fore several areas of weaknesses, inefficiencies, for which we had come up with a number of recommendations, for which we encourage the implementation of these recommendations by guiding the process, the whole implementation process. And as such, a number of areas in terms of operations has been strengthened. A number of checks and balances has been improved. In fact, our systems and procedures can be viewed as pretty robust. And as a result, we have mitigated against any losses. Internal audit has played a major role in developing the organizations, in assisting and leading in developing the organization's standard operating procedures,
In addition
with
to
regards,
in addition to the procedures, I wanted to pinpoint it because I want you to pinpoint the reason being. You would see, you have said that there were certain areas of weaknesses. If you can tell us give us an example of one or two of these areas of weaknesses with specific noticeable trends that you have identified as losses, hemorrhages from the company, because we are trying to provide you with an opportunity to correct those weaknesses, to bring them to strengths so that your organization be viable. Give us some specifics. What are these losses, and I'm using losses, or hemorrhages that you would have faced in terms of items, whatever it is, because I'll ask another question to pinpoint something.
in terms of our working capital, where our receivables and collection of our receivables, we have reviewed the entire sales billing process. And we have reduced the time in which our invoices are completed and the time in which it actually could get to our customers. So it's a question where it's not a question that we haven't examined internally. All our internal controls and our procedures with respect to hemorrhaging, in respect to our receivables, that is causing us a liquidity problem at VMCOTT. We have examined that thoroughly, but it's just a simple question whereby we are not receiving the payment whenever we request. And whenever we follow up, with several follow-ups to make, all our accounts are reconciled on a timely basis as a detective control. We recommend that. Our policies and procedures with regards to the billing aspect and the receivables are continuously reviewed and assessed to ensure that we have adequate internal controls in terms of preventive controls and detective controls. It's just simply a question that our customers, despite several meetings, to reconcile and ensure that our balances are good, it's just simply that they're not meeting, we're not getting any payment.
Do you have any matters, any litigation matters as a consequence? And if so, could you give us any information?
No.
Have you had any experiences with theft, vandalism, any of that would have been identified in any of your internal reports?
We would have had one incident of a missing transmission. I will say that we have done a thorough investigation of the matter. Again, we have reviewed the internal controls, and we have tried to identify where our internal controls had failed us. And we have taken measures to tighten those controls. However, we were not in a position to actually pin down specific individuals, and the matter is currently before the professionals, which is police.
Okay. Do you have in your internal audit perusal, in terms of preparing your reports, have you noticed any substantial amount? Well, we could define what substantial means, but have you come across obsolete inventory that will be quantified and that would have been a potential stop of a leakage of funds? So, because you would have been providing services, you might have stock parts or whatever have you, equipment. Do you have obsolete inventory, and if so, that you have on your hand and that you have not been able to get rid of, and what's the cost of it? What's the quantity of it?
We do have obsolete inventory for which was identified. They were valued, and we did seek authorization from the board and ministry to get approval to write off.
Could you give us a value of the obsolete inventory that you have in your
Perhaps you could provide us to us in writing. We're running close on time.
I know it was 12:15.
Could you provide the requested information in writing?
Yes.
Because that's some details you're asking the member that we may not have at hand.
No, but I'm not
So
sure whether-
continue with your line of
Do
questioning.
you have the information at hand?
No, not at this
Okay.
point in time.
Well, then can I ask for information that you might have on hand? Can you tell us, for example, what's the remuneration of a mechanic in any of your facilities?
Could I refer that
Sure.
question to remuneration?
How much is a mechanic paid?
A Tech 1 is being paid presently $5,500. And
That's at the entry level?
That's at the entry level, yes. And it goes all the way up to $6,500.
Okay. And in terms of that package, let's say, because the person who will sign off the vehicle will be the Tech 2?
The person who signs off the vehicle upon completion is a
Super.
quality control person.
Okay.
And
So
that will
I'm
be a
looking.
Tech 3.
Okay. So if we look at say, the mechanic at the second level, the higher level, how many vehicles would you say would have been serviced on a daily basis from you as operations manager?
Well, we have the technical capabilities to service up to 30 vehicles.
No, how many on that, your numbers you would have been, I'm sure you're doing time and motion studies. So how many on the average are serviced in a month, for example, per day?
Oh, in a month?
Per day.
Per day, yeah, about 20 vehicles.
Per day?
Presently now. Yeah, 20 is the minimum, is the maximum that we service per day now.
You could be an operating profit center.
Yeah, 20 per day, correct.
Okay. And are people paid at all on the basis of performance? But let me give you an example of where I'm coming from. If you are finding that because of the situation that we're experiencing now in the country, where I'm assuming that your throughput may not be as healthy as it would have been before,
Correct.
that your mechanics can be considered on the basis of pay for performance. Per hour then, for example. I'm not talking here about the union and their activities. I'm talking about in terms of incentives for people, productivity, and profitability. Have you given any consideration to that aspect?
In response to that question, the board has just taken a decision on the recommendation of management to give some incentive pay to those persons who are involved in repairing heavy equipment, apart from those people who are involved in repairing the lighter vehicles. So we have instituted a bit of incentive for the mechanics, the Tech 3s, Tech 2s, and Tech 1s, who will be working on the heavy equipment, like those trucks and stuff like that, in comparison to the smaller, lighter vehicles.
But the smaller, lighter vehicles are your largest market share. Have you considered appropriately in terms of incentivizing the attraction of people to service their vehicles at your operating centers?
Yes, we have, and we're giving that consideration right now. We may not be in the position to do a financial incentive. So what we look at is when we bring people to work on a Saturday, we give them compensatory time off, which allows a man to be able to go and take care of some of his personal issues during the week.
Okay. I did hear you say earlier on, Mr. Chairman, that sometimes you may access training locally, and some persons may have been sent abroad. Can you tell us, within the last year, 2 years, whatever have you, how many persons were sent abroad for training and the type of training that they would have accessed?
In the last 2 years, we have not been able to send anybody abroad.
Okay, so all the training now is done locally here. And who are your main training providers?
NESC is our principal training provider at this time. We are able to, in the past, we were able to get people coming from NESC and becoming technicians fully employed by us. So that is still a practice that we maintain.
I notice the chairman is looking at
the
his
chairman
time.
here, I would like to intervene. I am asking the member to understand that we have a sitting today, and we have a time constraint. I would like to bring this session to a close. I understand the member has several questions. I have several other unanswered questions, but we have a constraint also on the members who have to prepare for sitting, but also we have the staff. I want to start by saying that I think that The session today has revealed to this committee that we have an organization in crisis. And it's been in that way for some time. Notwithstanding, you've presented to the committee some information about some of the things that you plan to do. And in that context, the committee looks forward to receiving your strategic and other plans so we could understand better where the organization sees itself going forward to hopefully turn around its performance. Its historical performance over the past few years to current does not give a lot of confidence about the viability of the company as it stands now. So that it is very important for us to understand what your plans are, what your thinking is about how you're going to turn this company around from being, as it is now, receiving subventions from the state to stay alive. That is something that we would like to see less of in the Trinidad and Tobago context, especially given the government's current revenue situation. So that at this stage, I'd like to invite the chairman of VMCOTT to offer a few closing remarks before we bring the session to a close.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And to take a lead from what you indicated just now, given the current economic situation that we are in presently, VMCOTT is poised to help this government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago because there are quite a large number of vehicles belonging to ministries who are not taking the opportunity to bring their vehicles for maintenance and repairs to VMCOTT. It is suggested that there's no will, there's no determination, because ever so often when you look on the road, you listen to the number of vehicles belonging to other ministries. Why aren't they utilizing VMCOTT? Is it because they need to go out to the private sector for reasons of their own? Because VMCOTT is an organization that's transparent. It's above board. It has maintained very high levels of good governance and management practices. So there is no room for error. And is that one of the reasons why people are not utilizing VMCOTT? Because there are a number of organizations out there that should be directed to VMCOTT. And I want to thank you for the opportunity today, sir, for being able to indicate to this committee that VMCOTT can become viable once we have the support of the appropriate authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as a closing comment from the committee, let me give you the assurance that this committee is here to assist the entities that appear before us. To help, in order for us to help us, you have to help. For us to help you, you have to help us understand what your challenges are and what your current thinking is about how you're going to turn the enterprise around so that the committee can appropriately opine and provide recommendations to assist the company going forward. So always remember that the committee is here to be of support and assistance to the entities that appear before. So as I close, I want to thank the media and the viewing and listening audience and the various media that we have here at the Parliament. And I'd like to say now that this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.